The first half of my slide that I'm going to talk about is social perception. And by me, I mean Taylor Sluter. I will be presenting this. So, social perception. The first thing that I'm going to talk about with social perception is web-based social cognition. What that is how people view you through the media. Not necessarily just social media, but social media is probably one of the biggest things someone can view you through. So web-based social cognition is your first impression of somebody based off of what their social media looks like. In our textbook called Social Psychology and Christian Perspective, they talk about how they kind of experiment and they have different people and they go into their Facebooks to see how they, what their perception of those people are. So if you have a picture of you smiling or it looks like you're laughing and you have tons of likes on your picture, odds are you're probably going to want to be friends with that person. Versus where if you look at a Facebook profile where the person doesn't look as happy or their profile picture is of some totally random object or a different picture that is not them and they have very few likes, odds are you're probably not going to want to friend them on Facebook. Unfortunately, that's just the perception of social media and how that works. So that's what web-based social cognition is. So the next one is explain how culture relates to our perceptions of others and ourselves. Depending on your culture, you were brought up and will change to see how you view others in your daily life. This also changes the way we see ourselves in the mirror. Each culture has different morals that we can change in the perception on our daily life. So I do talk about specific cultures later on in my presentation. But me as an American girl, I don't have some of the struggles that other women in other cultures and countries have. I wake up, I get to vote, I get to have a say, I can get promoted, and I'm not degraded because of my gender, whereas in some cultures, women don't have the right to speak up, and they're looked at as objects and not humans. So that's kind of how perception of others and ourselves relate to culture. It just depends on how your culture is and how you view yourself. The next one is discuss whether or not these perceptions vary across culture. I kind of talked about that, mentioning two different types of women in my previous slide. However, the moral of the deciding factor on how cultures perceive not only humans but life in general. For example, the American culture is very similar to the British culture, but completely different from the American culture versus the Afghan culture. Reasons being, it looks like the women and children are treated way different than women and children in America. Women and children are not respected or treated very well in this country, whereas in America, for the most part, they are. So that brings me to my next presentation of the Chinese culture versus the American culture, the differences. I will also, this is still by me, I'm going to just talk about the differences between the cultures. So comparing and contrasting, with the American culture, we don't have a limit on how many kids we can have. We have the freedom to practice any religion. We have so many different restaurants and foods. I mean, we do have like the American food, like cheeseburgers, different types of French fries. But we also have tons of restaurants that are culturally accepted. Mexican, Chinese, Italian, and the list goes on and on. And then our elders, for example, we have living facilities where if you don't have the time, the patience, or you're not close with your elders, unfortunately, they go to homes where other people get paid to take care of them. And then also in America, we have more space to live and it's not as crowded. Whereas Chinese culture, it's very crowded and there's not very many space between people and houses. That's why even before COVID-19, they were wearing masks because they were just in such close contact. They also have what's called the one-child law. If you have multiple children, the consequences can be losing your job, your title, losing your medical insurance, and even sometimes becoming sterile, and you don't have a choice or a say in that. You can also only practice 5 religions, and I listed all 5 of those. And then their food, Chinese food, is very influenced and is very driven there. And that's just their culture. That's just what they want. That's what they eat. And then the other thing is their elders are very respected and often live with family until it's their time to leave Earth. Even the dead is very honored in China and respected. The thing that surprised me the most was the respect for elders. It really baffles me that in America, we don't have the respect for our elders that the Chinese culture does. The other thing is the religion law. I was very shocked to find out that you could only have the option of those 5 religions to practice. And then the other thing is the consequences for having more than one child. I always knew that you could only have one child, but I didn't understand the consequences. And then lastly, my perception has kind of changed and kind of not regarding the Chinese culture. Yes, because I love that they do have respect for the elders and the dead. Even when someone leaves this earth, they are still very honored. And it takes a lot of patience and dedication to watch over someone and give them that care they need. And then, no, because I've always known about the one-child law, but hearing the consequences, I don't think I could ever live there and be told how many kids I could have and be limited by the government. And then also no, because if I lived there, I wouldn't be able to practice Christianity, and that is the one religion. I don't want to convert to another religion. That's my religion. So I don't believe I could ever live in a place where I didn't have the freedom to practice my religion. And here are my references. Thank you for watching.